Recently, there has been this obsession and debate in various parts of the world on something I find absolutely bizarre: octopus farms. Besides the question of how octopuses can grow on trees, I continue to wonder, why does the world care? On World Octopus Day last year, which happened in, you guessed it, October, 120 NGOs, members of the European Parliament, and scientific experts urged policymakers around the globe to place a ban on octopus farming. Bans have already been legislated in several US states, as well as Chile. On the other tentacle, Spain is the leading developer of octopus farm technology, investing 9.7 million euros into the industry, with no bans in sight. I, for one, didn't know that free-range pulpo was in such high demand. I interviewed the CEO of one of these so-called octopus farms to learn more.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tako. Did you ever feel it was destiny that you would own an octopus farm? Why should we grow octopuses on trees?
Excellent question. So as you know, our growing economy comes also with a growing appetite for octopuses, which is a really well-known delicacy around the world. And of course, having the aquaculture to meet this demand just makes sense. So we take the octopus, put them in a controlled section of the bay sectioned off by nets, and rear them until they're ready for harvesting, or for breeding, where we harvest the eggs and start the cycle over and over again, so in that way it's sustainable.
So the octopuses are fattened up like chickens before being fed to us humans. How can this be good for nature?
Yes, so something like chickens. Currently all of our octopus come from fishing, so the way it works is they take pots and cages and they dump them into the ocean to trick the octopuses into thinking that these are viable places to settle in. And after some time, they reel in the pots and the cages and the octopus, which eventually end up on your dinner plate. But this method puts a strain on the octopus population because it isn't sustainable. I mean, if we keep taking from the ocean, how can we expect the octopus population to bounce back? And especially given our growing appetite, aka the demand for octopus meat, it's not sustainable at all. So on top of that, fishing is also quite wasteful, occasionally leaving behind things like broken nets or traps in the water, which end up trapping even more marine creatures, even though we don't plan on eating them. And additionally, regular fishing, so not the octopus fishing, can sometimes be destructive, with stuff like dredging, where they drag a big net across the ocean floor. That sort of practice ends up destroying a lot of the octopus homes and habitats, which really stresses their population. So that's why we want these farms in to kickstart something sustainable.
So the alternative to violence is to ethically control and grow their populations in an area. Isn't that a bit like playing God?
Well, humans are already changing the natural processes of this world in ways that cause great imbalances. So it's only right to help nature adapt to things like climate change. For example, seasonal upwellings in Galicia, Spain, are what drive octopus population numbers. And this is a process where deep ocean water rises up to the surface along with nutrients that the marine ecosystem benefits from, and which supplies the food chain with nutrients to grow, including our octopuses. However, these seasons have been harder to predict because of climate change causing disruptions in stuff like wind patterns, ocean stratification, and nutrient delivery, which have resulted in some years taking a hit in terms of fishing productivity. So I think it would be a good idea to farm octopuses instead to really reduce some of the stress on wild populations and let them recover. And on top of that, we can release some of the farmed octopuses back into the wild to restore some of these lost populations. And being able to meet the demand would, of course, give us the added benefit of making octopuses more affordable for everybody around the world to eat. And doesn't that sound like a great idea?
According to a recent Mongabay article, octopus farming is a horrible idea, citing their poor feed conversion rate. I didn't understand what that meant at all, so the producers have selected an octopus expert to help break it down for us.
Mr. Doc Ock, what does poor feed conversion rate mean?
So octopus are what we call obligate carnivores, meaning that they are only able to subsist and derive nutrients from other animals only. What this means is that octopus will have to be fed with large volumes of other animals, such as crustaceans, mollusks, and fish in order to grow. However, not all the feed will be utilized by the octopus to grow, as some parts of feed may be left uneaten or be undigested. This results in what is effectively an inefficiency in nutrient transfer. This can be quantified in the form of feed conversion rate, which refers to the percent feed incorporated into the octopus body by weight. Now here comes the kicker. The feed conversion rate of a common octopus was found to be 30 to 60% depending on its diet, which means anywhere from 1.3 kg to 3 kg of feed is required to grow an octopus by only 1 kg. This is low, even when compared to other farmed carnivorous animals such as salmon or trout. This problem makes octopus farming quite inefficient.
So octopuses are gluttons just like humans. It says here in the article that aquaculture doesn't just meet demand, it expands it. Could you explain this?
Think of it as a horrible feedback loop. Even if you successfully farm enough octopus to meet demand, the increased affordability and accessibility will increase interest in consumers, which will counterproductively drive the demand for octopus caught in the wild. This is a pattern that we have seen playing out in salmon farms, eel farms, and shrimp farms, across various types of agriculture even. And since octopus farm is already very inefficient, you can see how this will throw off the balance even more.
Are there any other hidden detriments to the environment from octopus farming? What if an octopus gets bitten by a bat? Doesn't it get COVID?
Actually, now that you mention it, diseases among the octopus are a possible detriment. Octopus, which typically are not found in such high density in the wild, will face increased susceptibility to diseases spread within the farm. Parasites, bacteria, and viral diseases can run rampant if left unchecked. Not only would this affect just the yield of the octopus, it could also pose other ecological problems. The diseases could spread to wild octopus in the vicinity of the farm, causing outbreak of diseases in the wild population, which could further deplete wild population of the octopus. These diseases could even jump to other species, such as humans, who have high levels of exposure to the farm octopus, much like how certain bird flu or pig flu outbreaks occur.
According to Mr. Doc Ock, aside from diseases in high-density farms, waste nutrients could leak into surrounding waters, causing eutrophication and harming nearby ecosystems, which is signs for poo in the sea. So there are clearly two sides to this eight-legged issue, but one question remains. Is there a way that we can still consider octopuses as an ethical and sustainable food source without worsening our ecosystem? Hopefully, by putting Mr. Takoyaki and Mr. Dr. Octopus face to face in the same tank, they can have a tentacle off, and we can decide once and for all. So, Mr. Takoyaki, Mr. Doc Ock here has raised some concerns about the sustainability of octopus farms. Do you have any comments?
Well, what if we had a completely closed loop farm? So that's a farm that completes the life cycle of the octopuses and isolates them from the ocean. Wouldn't that thereby prevent the disease outbreaks from happening? Also, I've heard that it's done before in labs, so wouldn't that theoretically be possible?
I believe no. As of now, I believe the early larval stages in octopus do not do so well in captivity. There has been records of high mortality rate within the early larval stages that would make such a closed loop farm unviable in a commercial setting. Furthermore, I believe the octopus generally die after a breeding cycle, and to circumvent that, I believe the labs have subjected them to, for example, removal of the optical glands so as to prevent the secretion of death hormones post-breeding. Don't you find that very cruel?
I guess, but what if we consider something like sea ranching? So that's a practice where we release juveniles into the open ocean to try and help the octopus populations recover. So wouldn't that eliminate the cost of rearing them and also reduce some of the wastage produced?
Sea ranching is more for sessile creatures such as sea cucumbers or clams. Octopus, being mortal creatures that are solitary and carnivorous, would naturally spread out to seek for more food. I'm sure that it will not help with profit margin if you have to go around looking for the octopus again, would it?
So octopus are also very well known for their intellectual ability, which also includes feeling pain. Does this mean octopus farming would essentially be creating a hell on earth for them, with muffled underwater screaming and gnashing of tentacles?
Well, if you're putting a bunch of chickens together in a slaughterhouse and that's considered fine, then why wouldn't this be? We just need to do what we can for ourselves, I feel. And octopuses always getting eaten out in the wild, so wouldn't this just be like nature?
Actually, the sentience of octopus, on top of being highly unethical, makes it extremely impractical for farming. There are higher levels of stress, as you insinuated, increases their mortality rate in such unnatural settings. In some cases of testing, they've even been shown to turn to cannibalism, which is another factor in making high-density farms unviable.
So, octopus farming is helping nature by driving a certain group of them to high levels of suffering. Sounds just like how the world seems to work, according to something I read on Twitter the other day. So, Mr. Dr. Octopus, if octopus farming is bad for the octopuses and bad for nature, what should we do instead?
I believe sustainable fishing is the way forward, and is the best compromise between man and nature. Legislations such as enacting marine protected areas, regulating fishing zones, and implementing catch limits will help octopus maintain population in such fisheries, and it has even been shown to increase fishing yields in the long run.
From our very violent discussion, we have concluded that octopus farming may not be the best way to go for our fishy exploits. Octopuses are greedy and require us to harm the environment even more just to feed them. Not to mention the whole host of diseases and pollution that these farms may incur. Instead, we should focus on managing our fisheries to make sure that we don't run out of fish. But that means proper lobbying and legislation to keep the best interests of man and nature and octopus in our hearts.